Welcome to the online classroom for the module FIN4802, International Financial Management. In this class, I'm going to be taking you through the first assignment for FIN 4802. So we're going to be discussing this assignment and just explaining some of the calculations that are in this assignment and what they mean. Right, so the assignment has two questions, one question with 20 marks and another question with 30 marks. Right. The first question has to do with currency exchange rate exposure. Right, let me just see if I can find it here. It has to do with exchange rate exposure, exactly, managing exposure to exchange rate fluctuations, managing transaction exposure, measuring exposure to exchange rate fluctuations, managing transaction exposure, managing economic exposure and translation. Most of the assignment is based on these three chapters, chapter 10, 11, and 12. So if you want to be relatively comfortable with this assignment, you have to have gone through at least chapters 10, 11, and 12 and really understood them. So that's where the assignment is based. Okay. So we'll start by looking at question one. We can already start. We'll just read the case study. You can also put the recording on pause if you haven't read this case study already. But I'll also read it out. The case study says, Tsonga Footwear, South African. So I'm just going to be highlighting some important things here. A South African manufacturer of leather sandals has chosen Malaysia as the primary export target for their sandals. Tsonga's primary product. Moreover, Tsonga's primary customer in Malaysia is Johor Bahru Shoes, has committed itself to purchase 180,000 sandals annually for the next 3 years at a fixed price denominated in Malaysian ringgit, which is Malaysia's currency. Because of quality and cost considerations, Tsonga also imports some of the rubber, dye, and plastic components needed to manufacture leather sandals. Okay. Lately, Malaysia has been experiencing weak economic growth and political uncertainty as investors lose confidence in the Malaysian ringgit as a result of the political uncertainty. They withdrew their funds from the country. This resulted in an excess supply of ringgit for sale over the demand for ringgit in the foreign exchange market, which put downward pressure on the ringgit's value. So all of these things are important. As you read, just try to pause and try to understand, try to see if you understand what's being said here. As foreign investors continue to withdraw their funds from Malaysia, the ringgit's value continues to deteriorate. Since Tsonga has net cash flows in ringgits resulting from exports to Malaysia, a deterioration in the ringgit's value will affect the company negatively. Mr. Maluleke, Tsonga's financial director, would like to ensure that the spot and forward rates Tsonga Bank has quoted are reasonable. If the exchange rate quotes are reasonable, then arbitrage will not be possible. If the quotations are not appropriate, arbitrage may be possible. Under these conditions, Maluleke would like Tsonga to use some form of the arbitrage to take advantage of possible mispricing in the foreign exchange market. Although Tsonga is not an arbitrageur, Maluleke believes that arbitrage opportunities could offset the negative impact resulting from the ringgit's depreciation, which would otherwise seriously affect Tsonga's profit margins. Mr. Maluleke has identified 3 arbitrage opportunities as profitable and would like to know which one of them is the most profitable. Thus, he has asked you, Tsonga's financial analyst, to prepare an analysis of the arbitrage opportunities he has identified. This would allow Maluleke to assess the profitability of arbitrage opportunities very quickly. Okay, so part A. The first arbitrage opportunity relates to locational arbitrage. Maluleke has obtained spot rate quotations from two banks in Malaysia, Malayan Banking, Berhad, Maybank, and RHB Bank, both located in the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. Right. So these are the bid and ask prices associated with each bank. Maybank is bidding at 3.149. This means if you have Malaysian ringgit and you go to a Maybank, right? Yeah, if you have Malaysian ringgit and you want to sell it in exchange for rands, right? Maybank is prepared to buy 1 Malaysian ringgit for 3.149 rand. This is how much Maybank will buy 1 Malaysian ringgit for. But if you want to sell, if you want to purchase a Malaysian ringgit from Maybank, they will sell it to you at 3.151 rands. So each ringgit will cost you 3.151. If you're buying it from Maybank, that's the ask price. But if you're selling it to Maybank will give you 3.149 rand. The bid price is always less than the ask price because the banks want to make a profit. They want to buy at a lower price than sell at a higher price. At RHB Bank, if you're selling a Malaysian ringgit, you get 3 rand 0.152. If you're selling a Malaysian ringgit, if you're buying, you have to buy it for 3.153. And then remember what locational arbitrage is. Locational arbitrage is a very simple form of arbitrage. I'll show you a very simple example of what locational arbitrage is. Let's assume we've got two banks. Don't worry about bid and ask prices. I'm just going to make this simple with a simple example before we actually look at bid and ask prices. Let's say you've got two banks, right, in South Africa, and one bank is prepared to sell you US dollars, like $1 US. They are prepared to sell you $1 US for 14 rand. And then let's say you have another bank. So Bank A is prepared to sell you $1 US for 14 rand, right? And then let's say you have another bank, Bank B, which is prepared to buy US dollars for 17 rand, right? So here you can have locational arbitrage because you have two banks in different locations which are effectively selling the same currency at different prices. So what you can do, you can simply buy $1 US here for 14 rand from Bank A. Then you can quickly go with that $1 US and you can sell it to Bank B, and Bank B can give you 17 rand. So you would have made a profit of 3 rand. So locational arbitrage is very simple, right? It's simply buying a currency where it's cheaper and then selling it where it's more expensive. That's simply the idea. Buying a currency where it's cheaper and then selling it where you're getting more money for that currency, and then you make a profit based on the price difference. You find something selling for less elsewhere, you quickly buy it, and then you go and sell it in another market where parties are prepared to pay more. So that's locational arbitrage. So here we've been given bid and ask prices, and we can see clearly these two banks, Maybank and RHB Bank, they have different bid and ask prices. Maybank is buying at 3.149, whereas RHB is buying at 3.152. Maybank is selling a ringgit for 3.151, whereas RHB is selling a ringgit for 3.153. So we have an opportunity for locational arbitrage here. We have an opportunity for locational arbitrage because the bid price of Maybank is not the same as the bid price for RHB Bank. And furthermore, the ask price for Maybank is not the same as the ask price for RHB Bank. So there are some differences in prices here which could be potentially exploited. So we want to investigate how we can exploit these opportunities using locational arbitrage. Okay. So the question says, determine whether the foreign exchange quotations are appropriate. We've already seen they are not appropriate. They are not appropriate because if you go to Maybank can sell you 1 ringgit. Maybank can sell you 1 ringgit for 3 rand 0.151. They can sell you this. You give them 3.151, they give you 1 ringgit, right? And then you can take that 1 ringgit and go to RHB Bank, where RHB Bank is buying these Malaysian ringgit at 3.152 rand, right? So it means you spend 3.151 rand to get 1 Malaysian ringgit. Then you take it and sell it to RHB Bank, which gives you 3.152 rand. So it means you can make a profit of 0.01 rand per each ringgit. Okay, I'll just repeat that. Simply a matter of going to Maybank, buying a ringgit. Of course, you won't buy a ringgit, you'll buy more than a ringgit and make larger profits. But I'm just using an example of 1 ringgit as it's just a simple example. You buy 1 ringgit for 3.151. So this is the money you spend. You get the 1 ringgit. You take this 1 ringgit, you sell it to RHB Bank for 3.152 rand. So it means initially you started off with 3.151 rand and now you have 3.152 rand. So it means you will have made a profit of 0.01 rand, right, per each ringgit. Of course, you're going to buy more than 1 ringgit because you might have a lot of money. So determine whether the foreign exchange quotations are appropriate. They're not appropriate. Okay, we've seen that. And I do talk about that in the assignment solutions. The foreign exchange quotations are not appropriate and it is possible to profit from locational arbitrage. So I've shown you why it is possible to actually profit from locational arbitrage. You can you can purchase a Malaysian ringgit for this price and then sell it for that price at RHB Bank and you can make a profit. Okay. Right. And then we're asked if they are not appropriate, determine the profit you could generate by withdrawing 1 million from Tsonga's business current account and engaging in arbitrage before the rates are adjusted. Okay. So what you will do here, you will use the 1 million rand to purchase a certain number of Malaysian ringgit, where 1 Malaysian ringgit will be sold by Maybank at 3.151. Remember, Maybank is prepared to pay 3.151. This is the price for each ringgit. So how many ringgits can you get if you have 1 million rand? And each ringgit is costing 3.151 rand. You simply take 1 million, which is the amount of money you have, divided by the cost per each ringgit, and then you get the total amount of ringgits you can buy. Okay, it's simply division. So this company will go to Maybank with 1 million. They'll talk to the Treasury Department or whoever they talk to in the bank, and or the Forex Department. And the Forex Department will sell 317,359.57 ringgit in exchange for the 1 million rand. Okay, so these are the amount of ringgits the bank will get. And then as soon as they get these ringgits, right, they will then quickly go to RHB Bank. They'll quickly go to the other bank, RHB Bank, where they are going to sell all those ringgits at a price of 3.152 rand. So the 317,359.57 ringgit could then be sold to RHB Bank at 3.152 rand per ringgit. Okay. So these ringgits, each of them is then sold for 3.152. So we simply take the amount of ringgits and we multiply them by the price per ringgit that the Royal Bank, is it Royal Bank, RHB Bank? Yeah, and RHB Bank is prepared to sell it, right? So we then take 3.152 multiplied by 317,359.57, and we get 1 million. Okay, this is actually the price that RHB Bank is prepared to buy at, right? We are selling our ringgits to RHB Bank. Remember, RHB Bank can buy ringgits at a price of 3.152. We've bought them at a price of 3.151 from Maybank, which is the ask price. And then RHB Bank is bidding 3.152 for those ringgits. So RHB Bank is prepared to pay this amount for each ringgit. So we can take our ringgits, multiply them by 3.152, and then we get 1,317,000.36. So this is the total amount we would get from RHB Bank. And then we could then calculate our profit. Initially, we entered into this transaction with a million rand. Now we've obtained 1,317,36 from RHB Bank, meaning our profit on the 1 million rand is 317 rand 0.36. It's not a lot. It's not a lot of profit, but nevertheless, there is a gain. Maybe if the company would put in even more money, like 10 million or 100 million, the profits would increase. Okay. So these benefits associated with locational arbitrage, they quickly disappear because investors in the market will pick up these differences. And then as they pick them up, they will start buying more and more from Maybank, which will push the ask price up, right? And they'll start selling more and more to RHB Bank, which will push the bid price for RHB Bank down. So eventually, this bid price for RHB Bank, it will eventually go down to maybe around 3.149 to try to match the market rates. And then this one will also go up maybe eventually to 3.153. But any benefits associated with the locational arbitrage will soon disappear due to market participants driving up rates or driving them down due to demand and supply. Okay. Next, let's look at question B. Question B says, besides the bid-ask quotes for the ringgit provided in the previous question, Maybank has provided the following quotations for the rand and the Japanese yen. So let's just make sense of this information. The value of a Japanese yen in South African rand, okay? So if you want to buy a Japanese yen from Maybank, they charge you 0.1058 rands. If you want to sell a Japanese yen to a bank, they will only give you 0.1057, okay? So they always give you less than what they sell for because they want to make a profit. That's the bid-ask spread, right? And then Malaysian ringgit in Japanese yen. If you want to buy a Malaysian ringgit using Japanese yen, it will be 32.70 yen. And if you want to sell a Malaysian ringgit to Maybank so that they give you yen, they will give you 32.69 yen for each Malaysian ringgit. So again, there's a bid offer spread. The bid price is always less than the ask price. Okay. And then you ask, determine whether the cross exchange rate between the Malaysian ringgit and the Japanese yen is appropriate. If it is not appropriate, determine the profit you would generate for Tsonga by withdrawing 1 million from Tsonga's current account and engaging in triangular arbitrage before the rates are adjusted. Okay, so far we've looked at one type of arbitrage. We've looked at locational arbitrage, right? Next, we also have a special type of arbitrage that's known as triangular arbitrage. Now, the idea behind triangular arbitrage is as follows. I'll also illustrate this to you using a simple example, and then we'll look at this question. So I'll use the prescribed textbook to help us with this example, just to make it easier to understand. So the prescribed textbook defines cross-exchange rate. Cross-exchange rates as the relationship between two currencies that are different from one's base currency. So in the United States, the term cross-exchange rates refers to the relationship between two non-dollar currencies. Okay, so now let's actually look at this practically. The thing is, let's say we are in America. Should we look at America? Okay, we have pounds here and dollars. Yeah, let's say we are in the United States. Let's say we are in the US, right? And let's say in the US, if you go to a bank, for example, let's say you are told that £1, we're not dealing with bid offer spreads here. Let's just keep it simple for now. Let's say they tell you that £1 is worth, maybe let's say they tell you that it's worth $1.60. So one US dollar 60. So let's say they tell you this. And then let's say at the bank, they also tell you that $1 Canadian, let's say the bank also tells you, okay, $1 Canadian. Say they tell you that $1 Canadian is worth 80 cents. Yeah, it's worth 80 cents US dollars. Yeah, given the relationship between the pound and the US dollar and the relationship between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar, we can actually derive what we call a cross exchange rate. I do talk about this in the online classes, but I'm just going through it again. We can derive what we call a cross exchange rate. And what a cross exchange rate is, it's actually an exchange rate between the pound and the Canadian dollar. Okay, we know how much £1 is in US dollars. We know how much $1 Canadian is in US dollars. But what is the relationship between pounds and Canadian dollars? We can actually derive the exchange rate between pounds and Canadian dollars based on the relationship between pounds and US dollars and the relationship between Canadian dollars and US dollars. So if we want to get the value of a pound in Canadian dollars, we simply take the pound US dollar exchange rate, because we're dealing with £1. If we want the value of £1 in Canadian dollars, we simply take the pound to US dollar exchange rate divided by the Canadian dollar to US dollar exchange rate. And then we get 2, right? So we get 2. So that means the exchange rate between the pound and the Canadian dollar is as follows. Each pound is worth 2 Canadian dollars. So this is known as a cross exchange rate. Initially, we had the exchange rate between the pound and the US dollar, and we had an exchange rate between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar. But we managed to take these exchange rates to give us an exchange rate between the two currencies that were expressed based on a common exchange rate, a common currency. Okay, so we could have done the same if we actually wanted the value of 1 Canadian dollar. If we wanted the value of 1 Canadian dollar as a pound, right, we would simply take the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Canadian dollar and the US dollar, which is 80 cents, because we have a 1 there, divided by the exchange rate between the pound and the US dollar, which is 1.60. So it would give us 0.50. So this would mean that one Canadian dollar is equals to 0.50 pounds. Yeah. So these are known as cross exchange rates. But you see what will happen in reality. Sometimes there'll be an arbitrage opportunity, because what will happen is you'll sit down and then you calculate your cross exchange rates. Like you'll sit down, you'll do your maths, and then you'll find that the cross exchange rate, okay, you'll find that the cross exchange rate between the pound and the Canadian dollar is like this. Like you might find that this is the cross exchange rate based on your calculations, based on the exchange rate of the pound and the Canadian dollar against the US dollar. You might find that this is the cross exchange rate. But then you might actually go into a bank, and then you might find a bank with something different from this. You might find a bank quoting 1 pound. You might find a bank quoting 1 pound being equal to 2.4 Canadian dollars. So this is what might actually be in a bank, this, whereas you calculated this. When that happens, we say we have triangular arbitrage. When the cross exchange rate between currencies, the cross exchange rate calculated using these formulas, when that cross exchange rate is different from what banks are actually quoting, it means we have triangular arbitrage, and we can try to make a profit from that situation. So in the